So I installed Highguard on the last day before its server shut down, and when I hit play, the game refused to launch. This was not because of my hardware, not because of the drivers or anything, but because my BIOS settings weren't configured the way the anti-cheat wanted me to. And thinking about it, I believe this situation paints a clear picture about where PC gaming might be heading, at least in my opinion. And that's what I want to talk about today. So thanks very much for joining me. My name is Bishop, part-time narrator, full-time liability. And this is your friendly reminder to buckle up, Dorothy. Kansas is going bye-bye. Now here's what happened. I installed the game, launched it, and instead of starting, it threw an error message with a link. You can't really click or copy or anything. And apparently I was supposed to go read a troubleshooting guide somewhere else on how to fix it. So basically the game required two things: secure boot and TPM, pre-mutual tension for motherboards, or trusted platform module, or whatever it's called. I run a dual boot setup with Windows and Linux Mint, and I use something called the GNU GRUB bootloader to choose which system I want to start. So my motherboard has two NVMe drives. I split drive one with Windows and Linux, and the other drive is just for gaming and recording. So when Windows gets installed, he has to go first because he has the habit of rewriting boot configurations and master boot record when installed after other systems. So Linux gets installed second because it actually plays nice with Windows. And it says like, hey, there's Windows here installed as well. Let's all play nice together. Kumbaya. I know what you guys are thinking. You can force it. Yeah, sure, maybe. But the thing is, enabling secure boot after a dual boot setup can interfere with how bootloaders work. And in some cases, it can prevent one or both operating systems from launching. So the choice was pretty simple. Do I risk breaking my system, or I uninstall the game? And given the game it was, I think you guys can pretty much guess what I went with. So why would a game care so much about my BIOS settings in the first place? And I think the answer is just these modern anti-cheat systems. So many modern multiplayer games try to detect the cheating before the game even launches. So to do that, they have to install things at a kernel level, right? Kernel drivers, boot verification systems, integrity checks. And those systems sometimes rely on things like secure boot and TPM, the trusted platform module, to run. So to understand why that matters, we need to talk about something called the kernel. So every operating system has one, and they all stink. Sorry about that stupid joke. So the kernel is basically the core part of the operating system and talks directly to the hardware. So it controls memory access, drivers, hardware communication, scheduling. So when software runs at a kernel level, it runs with the same privileges as the operating system itself, because it's at the kernel level. So that means it can monitor processes, inspect your memory, check drivers, verify system behavior, everything. He has access to everything, which is exactly what anti-cheat software wants to do, right? Cheats have evolved so much over the years. A lot of cheats nowadays don't run inside the game at all. I'm not sure if you guys remember, there used to be sequences to unlock unlimited bitches or something like that. So now they try to run before the operating system even loads. I think some of them called bootkits. And that's because they load before the operating system. They can hide extremely well, so it's very hard to detect them. And that's where secure boot comes in. So the secure boot was originally designed to stop malware from hijacking your computer before the operating system even loads. So you got to think of it as a security guard at the very first door of your PC. I'm not sure if that makes sense. But when the computer starts, secure boot checks the first pieces of software that load, things like the bootloader, and verifies that they're signed by trusted keys. Now, those keys usually come from hardware manufacturers or companies like Microsoft. So if something tries to start that isn't signed or trusted, the system simply refuses to run it. And that's actually a good thing if you think about it, because some malware tries to hide before the operating system even starts. But of course, there's a side effect, which is the secure boot expects the system to boot in a very specific, approved way. And custom setups, especially like Linux bootloaders or dual boot systems, they don't always follow that exact pattern, which is why things can get, I don't know, air quotes, complicated. The other requirement was the pre-mutual tension for motherboards. So the TPM, the Trusted Platform Module, is a small security chip that it's built into modern motherboards. Now, this stores cryptographic keys, and it helps verify that certain parts of the system haven't been tampered with. It's heavily used by modern operating systems like Microsoft Windows dogshit 11. So basically, think of it like a hardware security checkpoint, a second one. And the cherry on top is that this game was secretly backed by Tencent. So we all heard the story. I'm not going to go back into it, but Tencent has investments all across a massive portion of the gaming industry. And they also hold major stakes in companies like Ubisoft, which they want to gobble up. So when a game asks for kernel-level access to my system, I think the only logical conclusion is they want access to my memes folder. The motherfucker. Now, I've been gradually spending more time on Linux lately, not because it's perfect, but because I do want to gradually detach from Microsoft Windows dogshit 11. So my primary use of the PC is gaming, and Proton now allows thousands of Windows games to run on Linux. So in fact, I think all my 200-ish or something games on my personal account run on Linux, minus a couple online mode ones. So like GTA Online, which is one of the few reasons why I kind of still keep Windows installed, but given I barely log into that, I think I could live without. So running a dual boot setup lets you transition gradually instead of just switching overnight, and keep some Microsoft Windows applications that haven't been ported to Linux yet. So I think that there's better ways to fight cheating, if you ask me, without getting straight into no kissing rod deep into your system. And given games are such a huge media nowadays, I think it makes sense for the powers that be to want that access to your machine, to that information, to that telemetry. And Windows has enough of that already, like they spy everywhere. So I think they should start with actually proper game design, because I think people often cheat when systems feel unfair. You'll never eliminate bad actors completely, of course. There are always going to be idiots doing idiot things. But my guess is that if the rewards aren't locked behind ridiculous time sinks and the games respect the gamer's time, I think most people wouldn't even bother cheating. Most people. Now, if a game requires BIOS configuration just to launch, I think from this point on, I'm not installing it. And if a game requires me to reconfigure my BIOS just to start, I'm going to guess I'm not the target audience for this. Highguard wanted control over my boot chain, so he got the boot. Yeah, so guess I missed the goodbye of yet another online game that disappeared way before most people even noticed or cared or gave a two shites that it existed. So I swear there's got to be some 4D chess going on behind the scenes here, because maybe they found the perfect tax write-off loophole and they ain't telling us about it. But that's a conspiracy for another video. Thanks very much for riding shotgun. Bish signing out.